got into it, of a Rashi would appear that the Etzem Chanukah is what is interesting everybody. So I want to now go into this whole idea of what is this whole inyan of the Chanukas.
He's there. No.
He's there.
Chanukas HaMizbeach. And through that it would appear the Chanukah of the Mishkan. So let's think for a moment, what is this whole thing of the Chanukah? So in order to sort of get the spirit of what I'm going to try and say, what happened with Pesach Sheni, which is just the next step down the line in the Parsha, what happened with Pesach Sheni? How come you got a mitzvah in the Torah of Pesach Sheni? It would appear that if it hadn't been for a certain act or event on the part of certain people, you wouldn't have had Pesach Sheni. So what happened? What was the story there?
People got impure?
Yeah.
They got impure. They couldn't give the first Pesach.
Ah. You had a group of guys that L'chora, Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, you guys have told me I can't help you, you know. So they said, you know, let's try a Zah combination. And they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Loma Nigo, why should we be different? Why should we miss out? You follow? And so that question is a very profound question. They knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was right, I feel. They couldn't really open because they're Tomei. Even though maybe there is a certain possibility, but generally speaking, not. So therefore, what did they want when they said Loma Nigo? Or they were indicating that they wanted to, as it were, under all circumstances, carry out the Ratzon of Hashem and the Eibishter. And what happened? The Eibishter said, oh yes, I see they really want, but not stam, because they said, Loma Nigora, why should we miss out? Why should we be different? And so it's brought down in the Siddur. That's a very deep, profound cry of the Neshama. No, Shimon, I see you letting me down today. You're sloughing. Listen, you have to put yourself in my shoes. I come especially to make an effort and give over a message to you guys. And everybody's cupping, everybody's drumming a little bit here and there. Very good. He's what they call put in a good word. Very good. What's this gentleman's name?
Avidal.
I see you're keeping the, there's an old Klali, better late than never.
Yeah, sorry, I was in Tveria.
So, what happened was that in Pesach Sheni, all of a sudden the Eibishter said, oh yeah, these guys are going to get another chance. And together with them, anybody that will face a situation like this, they're going to get another chance. And that other chance, that represents a whole new dispensation from heaven that wouldn't necessarily have been there. That's what it would appear. And that's a pillar. I'm not going into the what you might call the philosophical aspects of that, or the sort of shilas that arises. Oh, but that's the fact. Yeah. So therefore, come to us that Pesach Sheni represents a very amazing idea. People really wanted to do this, so Hashem gave a whole new mitzvah in the Torah. So now I'm going to take you back to last week's Parsha, and there's a Ramban, but I want to oblige you to look inside the Ramban. And there's a very, very fascinating Ramban at the beginning of the Nasiim, and the Ramban, not right at the beginning, a little couple of, sort of paragraphs inside, And the Ramban says a very interesting thing. He said this whole thing of the Chanukas HaMizbeach on the part of the Nasiim, he said, was that a commandment on the part of Hashem, or was that something they came up with? Does anybody have any suggestions? Both. Well, Pesach Sheni was also both.
Yeah, exactly. It's like.
So the Ramban, it's not me, the Ramban says that it's just like Pesach Sheni. And later in these words, he compares it to Pesach Sheni. And he said the whole idea of offering a Chanukas HaMizbeach was the idea of the Nasiim, that nobody told them to do it. But they came up with the idea that we're going to do all this, offer all this on the Mizbeach, and Hashem knew what they were thinking of, and then Hashem said to Moshe, instead of them all coming together at one bang, do it for 12 days, each day a separate prince, a separate Nasi, and Hashem, as it were, entered into the flow, and he said, let's do it in a very Masuladik way, and he gave instructions how to do it, but he didn't actually give the instruction that you've got to do it. And he said, the Ramban, he said, this can be in that way compared to Pesach Sheni. So now it'll be nice why it's mentioned in the same passage, this whole Indian, at the Hadlocha Sanever. In other words, that the Ramban gives a very, very fascinating idea to the whole Chanukas HaMizbeach on the part of the Nasiim. And he adds, the Ramban, and he writes that it became a mitzvah l'doirois. And he said, this is a mitzvah for all the generations. Yeah. So I asked the question, what mitzvah for whom? For the Nasiim, or, what sort of a mitzvah is it?
Right.
So he says, the Ramban, wherever you have a new Beis HaMikdash in history, or a new big start in the Beis HaMikdash, you will find that you had a Chanukah, a big lead-up, that the whole thing could have been quite healthy and got on without that. And he said, Shlomo HaMelech, when he built the Beis HaMikdash, 2 whole weeks there was a Chanukas, and so great was the Chanukas HaMikdash that Shlomo HaMelech made that they ate on Yom Kippur. You don't know the whole story. It began on Ches Tishrei, and they ate for 2 solid weeks, including Yom Kippur. That the Eibishter gave a special dispensation that they can continue eating a fil on Yom Kippur. So Gemara Masechta Moed Kotan. So all the eyes jump out. You could have said, the Eibishter, you could have said, listen, take it easy, guys. Today's Erev Yom Kippur and tomorrow's Yom Kippur. Continue your Chanukah afterwards. You want 2 weeks? Make it 2 weeks after Yom Kippur. No, the Eibishter said, this is so profoundly makubal by me that you have to, you're permitted. And the Gemara says over there that he said that all the people who ate on that Yom Kippur are all B'nai Olam Haba. For sure, they're going to get Olam Haba.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That's the old saying. Exactly verkehrt. It's a pillar. Oh, but that's what happened. Yeah, and then we go a bit further, and we go to the Beis Sheni. And when the Greeks came in, it's written that they messed up the whole Mizbeach. So at the time when the Chashmonaim conquered and drove them out, apart from the Neros of Chanukah, they made a Chanukas HaMizbeach. They made a big thing, and that's already mentioned in Ezra. That's mentioned in also in the latter part of the Torah Shabbat. That there was a big Chanukas HaMizbeach at the time of Chanukah.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we read in the Torah, the Chanukas HaNasiim, on Chanukah, because they made a very similar thing. And so wherever And now I want to go back to what I asked you guys about the housewarming party. That it's gone further than that. That wherever a Yid opens up a new dwelling place, he already makes that like a form of a mishkan, because he says he has to make a Chanukah Habayis. And the Goyim call it a housewarming party, lahavdil. But they get it wrong because they shikah and carry on. But Yidden, Chas v'Sholom, don't do that. Yeah? Yidden come and make a whole thing. At least we hope. Yidden come and they make a whole thing. Chanukah's Habayis. So you might say, well, how do you know that? It's a Mefurish of Mogen Avraham. Now, the Mogen Avraham, he was a very big posek on the whole Shulchan Aruch of the Beis Yosef. The Alter Rebbe realized he was a very unbelievably great person. And he was some very, how do you call it, modest monetary-wise. He was, I don't want to use the expression poor man, but he used to write his pirush on little serviettes that he would pick up at a meal or something to wipe his hands. Somebody he would write some of his chidushei pirush on the halachas. Therefore, they had a big challenge to get his sefer all organized, because they had to pick it up from all sorts of little pieces of paper. That it's an amazingness that these papers didn't get thrown out, because there were just little things that you wipe your hands with and all sorts of mazes. Yeah, and later he got some writing paper, but then he had to use it on both sides, and also that's a more no wrong. So he comes along in Hilchos Tainis, way over towards the end of Chelik Chaim in Shulchan Aruch. And it's talking over there about a person that took on himself a neder that he's going to fast a certain amount of days. And he's already fasting one of his days. Yeah? What happens if all of a sudden he gets invited to a mitzvah? And it's a Sudas mitzvah. Let's say he got invited to a bris milah. So the so the Beis Yosef paskins that he is allowed to eat and break his tainus. It's just that he might have to fast again another day. But on this day, even though he's been metchayev to fast, because of the mitzvah and the Sudas mitzvah, he's allowed to break it. And he's allowed to eat because of the Sudas mitzvah. You know what he writes at the Mogen Avraham? He said, and nowadays what people make, Chanukah's Habayis, that's what he writes. He said, if they say Divrei Torah, and they take it seriously, and you know what he writes over there? And they don't drink, just for the sake of drinking. As they wrote the Mogen Avraham, very interesting. He writes those words. And he said they do all those things. It's a surat mitzvah. That is what's called a surat mitzvah. Oh, Mela, the person, even if he's invited to a Chanukah's Habayis and he's fasting, he can break his fast, even though he made a neder that he's going to fast today. Mela, that's a very interesting thing. So we see this Chanukah's Habayis is getting a, how do you call it, important part, and it's a mitzvah. It's sort of become, it's a sudat mitzvah. If you treat it the right way and you have the right attitude, it's a sudat mitzvah. So also the shaila, where did he get that mitzvah from? Where is the mitzvah? So I want to suggest to you guys that sparks give off smaller sparks. That is a spark from the mitzvah of Chanukah's Habayis, Chanukah's HaMishkan, Chanukah's HaMizbeach. And now it's come down to Chanukah's Habayis. So that is going to lead us to my conclusion And the Shiur Kodesh's conclusion that the word Chanukah here, and maybe by Hanukkah itself, means the idea of chinuch. And therefore the Magen Avraham writes very nicely that you must treat this in the right way. Then it's a sort of, then it's a Chanukah. But if you just want to guzzle or, have a good time, that's what the Rebbe Rashab meant with shoes, with the Frierdiker Rebbe, the same thing. He said, you just want to enjoy your shoes. That's not why we bought you specially new shoes for Yontif, and that's not why you got new shoes to approach a mitzvah and so on. We bought it for the sake of to be Behaalotha, you follow? To educate him. And education says, I'm not in it just for the sake of what I can have pleasure from that in it. I'm in it for what am I supposed to be doing according to Hashem's purpose in the world out of that in it. You follow? And my tainug has to be linked with a certain tainug, Eloki. So it could be I'm only human, I will feel a bit of tainug. But I will know and I will try to link it with the tainug, Eloki. Yet, we'll understand.
How can you verify that that's really what you're doing?
You could just
How would I verify what?
The emet, ma emet.
Say the words I said.
What's the evidence?
Yeah.
What evidence?
What's with the evidence? Okay.
About what?
That you're really doing a Hanukkah Sabayas and not just a party.
What's this?
Yeah, okay, can you just see exactly what I
read it then.
or I can come over here if you want.
Kavana. Kavana.
How do you know that you're doing it for the right reason?
Yeah.
I don't know what he's asking.
How do you know you're doing it for the right reason?
How do you know if you're doing the right thing? Oh, you see, so that's a very good question. Because sometimes a person can make a certain lavouche for himself that he's doing the right thing, but really he means himself. So that's why you need a mashpia, and that's why you need what you might call, the Rebbe said, a seilach rav is a general thing for everybody, It's good to have somebody that helps you out. Therefore, this whole thing came from the Rebbe Rashab. It's not that the Rebbe Rayat picked it up from somewhere or he read it in a book. He got it through his mashpia, you follow? Which means that Einoch to really know what is the real chinuch, you need to have a mechanech. You need to have somebody that he guides you. But once he's guided you a few times, maybe you can already be independent somewhat. You can already get the idea and you can work on your own. You follow? But only if you began with the right kivan derech. That's a good question. Otherwise, people can sometimes think that, they're educating themselves, but really they're playing hide and seek with themselves. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, whatever. So I want to tell you now a thing that happened with me, that when I was I lived in Bnei Brak. I lived in Bnei Brak for about close to 50 years, 50 years. So at the beginning I lived outside Bnei Brak in a neighborhood that was considered Bnei Brak, but it was like, outside. Then Mamish at the time of the 6-Day War, just a little before that, the Pesach, 6-Day War was near the end of the Spirit. At that Pesach I moved into a dira in the center of Bnei Brak. So I made a Chanukah Zabayas and I invited a lot of the Bocharim to come. And I was very close then with the old Rav Landa, not the Rav Landa that passed away, unfortunately, and not his son now, I'm talking about the grandfather, the old Rav, the grandfather of the present young Rav, that he lived here in Tzfat. I was very close with the old Rav Landa. And he had been very close with the Rabbi Rashab, you know that. He was the personal role of the Rabbi Rashab. Yeah. So I invited him to come, so I didn't think he would come, you know. It was one honor. He didn't go to all the because if he did, you know, Bnei Brak's become a big town, even in his time, he would just be running all over. So I wasn't sure, but in the end he came. He came to the thing. And afterwards, I'm not going to go now into certain things that happened that were also very interesting, very fascinating, but later, he called me over after the Chanukah. I happened to come into his house for some reason, and he called me over, and he said, look at this. So he showed me in the Hemshech summer ball from the Rebbe Rashab, in the Pasha of Vayigash, which is the Pasha after Hanukkah. There's a whole piece about the minhag of Chanukah Zabayas, the minhag of making a Chanukah Zabayas when you go into a new house. Now that maimah, or that portion of the maimah which talks about it, is based on a maimah from the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah. And right at the end of the Alter Rebbe's Pirush al Torah in Pasha Brocha, after Simchas Torah and everything, the Alter Rebbe's got a whole piece about Chanuchas Habayis, yeah. And he says that just like there was a Chanuchas Habayis in the Mishkan, when you go into a new dira, you should make a Chanuchas Habayis. Yeah, the Alter Rebbe writes that you should do it. And he says, in the second Maimah, there's two Maimarim that they deal with the Indian. In the second Maimah, he says that you should invite your friends, and they should bring good food, and things like that to put on the table, and even to bring a present or things. The Alter Rebbe writes it in. So there's already a big mocker in Chabad. In Chabadske, there's a big market for the Indian making a celebration of the Chanukah Zabayis. The Alter Rebbe himself writes it, and he said you should make. And if I'm not mistaken, he uses the word there, not just minhag, but a sort of an obligation that you have. And it's not clear what that would go back to the Ramban, that this is really a mitzvah, like Pesach Sheni, and it's become a mitzvah, l'kol ha'ader, and that's what Shlomo HaMelech kept that mitzvah. So, if we learn like that, and we look carefully what is written over there, and he showed me in some of all. So I, to this day, it's an amazing thing, but I actually have that copy of that same summer ball that he showed it to me in. Because later, he gave me a present of that summer ball. Yeah, he personally gave me a present. And he's got little things written in his handwriting on pieces of paper inside that summer ball in different places that I got him. Yeah. And I got him because he gave me that summer ball as a present. And that was a very big kilo on his part. Because, he could have said, I have affectionate connection with the Sefer, He's written things in it and everything. He gave it to me, yeah. So over there, I saw what the Rabbi Rashab writes over there about. And that's going to bring us back to what we said at the beginning. And he writes over there a very fascinating thing, the Rabbi Rashab. And it's what the Alter Rebbe says, but it's with a sort of an additional development, like a sort of what you might call an emphasis. And he writes over there, the Rabbi Rashab, when you move into a new house, you should make a Chanukah Zabayis, and he said you should be koire l'reov u'leyedido, to his neighbors and his good friends. Well, the word reya also means a good friend, but a close friend. You should call them all, and they should come, and they should bring with them matonas teva. That's what he writes the altar. They should bring some sort of good matona towards the house, and they should bring macholim tevim. Yeah, the Rabbi Shab writes macholim tevim. Yeah, good, tasty, adequate food they should bring, and that's like the basis of the whole food, which would tend to imply that the person who owns, he just adds a little, he puts in a little bit, but he benefits everybody from the sort of what they themselves bring to be Mr. Tefin, which would indicate that it's like a plural thing. It's not just the person, but it's all the people who are coming to the Inyan are joining in and they're adding to it. You follow? So then he says, what is the whole Inyan? He said the whole Inyan of Chanukah is the word Chinuch. And he said Chanukah's Abayis means that you mechanech the Mizbeach. So he says, how can you be mechanech the Mizbeach? So he said, listen, what does it mean, Chinuch? What does it mean you mechanech a young kid? And this takes us back to the Mazel with the Rabbi Rashab. So he says over there, the Rabbi Rashab, a big yisod. And he said, what is it, Chinuch? He said, Chinuch means that you put a lot of koiches into the child when he's young, which are a little bit beyond his ability to gain himself, but you put into him, and Alidei, when he gets that very elevated form of koyach, he has the ability afterwards to carry out his day-to-day function in a very capable way, because he made a big start and he got a lot of, and therefore he brings from the Rambam, that the Rambam writes when a boy first goes to Cheder, the Rambam writes when he starts learning, you should give him a lot of matonas too. You should give him sweets and all sorts of good stuff, because that gives him a cheshek to go, and that means he will absorb much better what we're trying to give him. And the secret of Chinuch, he writes over there, the Rabbi Rasham, is to give him what is it would appear a little bit beyond his ability, not incomparably, but a little bit just higher. And Alidei he reaches up, yeah, and he grasps things what they later they fix his whole life, and that's what's written in the pasuk. Chanoik lenar al pidarkoi. Yeah, it's a pasuk in Mishlei. Yeah, chanoik lenar al pidarkoi. Gam ki yazkin lo yosef mimenu. Even when he gets old, he won't go away from that way you put into him when he was young. And that's the whole idea. So he said, what's a child to the Mizbeach? He said the Mizbeach has a tremendous job. The Mizbeach has to make birurim and has to be mavara. They need to tell a key in all the adequate korbanos and everything which is put on the Mizbeach. Oh, that's a tremendous, the Mizbeach needs tremendous koikas that on a daily basis it should be able to elevate the whole animal world and bring it up into eloquence and bring down Gilei, the Eber's Tainug, Shochanti B'Seichel. They had to bring it down into the world. Oh man, that's a tremendous thing. We give them Mizbeach, and that was what the Nasiim, that's what they saw, and they came up with that idea. And the Ramban said, that the Eberster was maskim with that. In other words, the Nasiim, they did what they did as a offer of their own koiches. So we can suggest all sorts of reasons why they did that. And Hashem was maskim that that's a very good idea. Meaning, had it not been for the Nasiim, maybe we wouldn't have had this whole mitzvah of Chanukah, Mizbeach. Now we certainly got it, because we got a koyach, which is the basis of the whole idea of Chinuch. And so he goes on there, the Rabbi Rashab, the people, by coming and showing their friendship and their comradeship, and by bringing them matonas and everything for the Chanukas, they are mamshik a makif elyon. That's what he writes, the Rabbi Rashab over there. They bring down a makif elyon, and that causes that the house becomes a makom bracha b'fnei atzma. That the place, not just it has a bracha from, or you can give it brachas, but it